Next up, candidate for mayor, Anthony Weiner. Former congressman.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by offering apologies for being a little late. I don't want to go into the details because I've only got a couple of minutes, but it involves a 17-month-old peanut butter and a cat, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm not sure I'm ready to be mayor. I did not manage that situation very well at all. So if that's your condition for voting, I might not be the man to eat. Put peanut butter in the back of the cat. My wife yelled at me. She doesn't like the cat. Anyway, vinegar doesn't work. My name is Anthony Weiner. I grew up in Brooklyn, the son of middle-class parents. Went to public schools my whole life. My parents were able to find an affordable place to live in Brooklyn, send me to public schools. My mother had a good union job working for the Board of Education as a school teacher for 31 years. My parents were the first ones who went to college, so I was able to go off to have this remarkable life where I got elected to the United States Congress. That vision of the middle class and how you climb one rung at a time, each generation hands off a slightly better generation to the one following. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, is it possible to do when you can't find affordable housing, you can't find a decent job with good benefits, and your public schools aren't what they're supposed to be? If you don't have those three legs of the aspirational ladder of life in New York, it's not really calling you, saying, oh, you've got every opportunity that everyone had. No. Things are different now. And we would always, no matter where we came from, we had one kind of consistent way to measure whether we were a success. It didn't matter whether you lived in Harlem, whether you lived in Park Slope, whether you lived in Gramercy, whether you lived in Staten Island. One question, and it unified us all. Are we leaving a city, a neighborhood, a life, just a little bit better than the one we inherited? And if the answer was yes, there was dignity. If the answer was yes, there was honor. If the answer was yes, there was opportunity and something that you knew you'd be able to bounce your kids, grandkids on their knees, God willing, and say we did our job. But today, we need a lot of help to be able to say that. I don't know if I got a call from a buddy from college and said, my son or daughter got a job in New York City, can you find an affordable place to live where I can? I don't know where I would say to a college graduate who got done with school, who worked hard to put themselves through college, can you tell me where's a place I can find a good job with benefits, not a part-time job with no benefits? I don't know if I can say to most people, point to them and say, you know what? You've got a quality public school education in front of you in your own neighborhood. If those three things don't get fixed and don't get fixed fast, we are not going to be able to say to our kids we did everything we could to make things better. Now, I've got a bunch of ideas, 64 of them, are on my website, go into some of them, but I want to tell you a little bit first about where I've been. Now, I don't know how many of you have any experience with public housing. Some of you may. When I was in the city council a while ago, and I got a chance, finally got enough seniority, they said, you can have a subcommittee or a committee, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be the subcommittee on public housing. And Peter Malone, as the speaker, said, public housing? But you're like from a part of Brooklyn, you only have a little public housing there, why do you want to do it? I said, because those people are underrepresented. And I don't know how many of you remember. Do you remember when the stairwells were bursting into flames in public housing? And you remember there was one scrawny, skinny, undernourished city councilman standing up to Rudy Giuliani saying something was wrong here. And I was on, I don't know what kind of list he had, but I was on it. And as it turned out, the paint they were putting on those walls was flammable paint, and a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of someone in the administration had gotten that contract. And I fought him tooth and nail. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't look like much, but I can handle myself. And I told them, I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear press conferences. I want you to remove that paint, every drop of it. And you know what they did? They said, no, I'm Rudy Giuliani. I don't make mistakes. And I kept standing up and kept standing up. And then one Christmas Eve, there was another fire. And I held up a letter that's from the fire department. It said, if you don't remove the paint from that very building, you were going to have trouble. They called me Ebenezer, Weiner, the Grinch that stole Christmas, and all these names. But the bottom line is, I hung in there, I fought for you, and I think that with me and you working together, and with God looking down upon us, we save lives. I'm not saying that if you vote for me for mayor, milk and honey is going to flow through the streets of Harlem. But I am going to say that every single day, I'm going to lay down my head thinking about how the next day, I'm going to get up to fight for you. Thank you very much.
We're going to do some quick yes or no questions. Yes or no answers. Standard questions.
I know lots of words. Let me use some of them. All right, go ahead.
wrongful arrest and conviction of the Central Park Five. Some young men who were from this very community. They are fighting currently with the current administration to get compensation. We could never pay them for what they have gone through. But our question to you, yes or no, when you become mayor, will you settle and pay the Central Park Five?
I will compensate those victims.
We are living in a community where stop and frisk is an everyday occurrence. Our young people are being harassed and attacked and humiliated. We want to know, as mayor, will you end stop and frisk?
No, I will not end. Can I answer that question a little bit more? A little more? Okay.
Co-locations and school closings are plentiful in our community. Our school right a block from here, the nearest school to here, currently there are 5 schools located in that building. We are asking you, as mayor, should you be elected, will you put an end to the co-locations and school closings?
I won't? No. Okay, good. Let me explain both of these things. Let me do stop and frisk first. Look, I think we all agree, I think, that if a police officer sees someone who's acting like they're about to commit a crime, or they think just did a committed crime, we want them to interview them and find out, make sure the crime's not happening. But I can tell you this, if a police officer has dozens and dozens of times they're stopping someone, there's no gun, there's no crime, there's nothing being done, that is they have a CompStat board that shows us where all the crimes are happening, surely they can count when someone's stopping people and not getting arrested. That's a bad cop, that's a bad supervisor, that's a bad inspector, that's a bad commissioner. I would fire them all if they do that. But I want the police to go out there and arrest the bad guys and arrest the drug dealers, and if they see something happening suspicious, I want them to be able to stop it. So that's why I said don't eliminate it. And about the co-location, look, I answered this question earlier today. If you have space in the school, and I frankly don't think the school's here, this was ever the issue, but if you have space in the school, there should be 3 options. 1, you got a space in the school because parents are taking their kids out. That means I want to put something in that space, like a gifted and talented program. Or 2, I want to have something that maybe makes that school a real attractive magnet to the community. Maybe a fancy science lab in that empty space. Or maybe a gym in that empty space. Or maybe an art gallery in that empty space. Or 3, I am okay if there's empty space and you have those 2 options to add a 3rd. If someone wants to come and say, I want to open up my own school in there, but here's my standard. The standard is not what is good for a bunch of fancy donors. The standard is what is good for our community. I want us to be consulted, and I want all of those 3 things to be on equal footing, not an advantage for the charter school. So those are the 2 things.
Okay, this is another NYCHA question. I'm having a little trouble with the handwriting, but I think I can make it out. Would you choose the NYCHA chair, as the NYCHA chair, someone who lost their job on Wall Street, has no background in public housing administration and/or social services? And part 2, will you fire John Ray?
Yes, no. Can I have this one as my yes, no? Look, can I tell you, for generations in this town, and my brother Billy Thompson will tell you this is the case for generations in this town, the NYCHA chair has been a patronage job. Plain and simple. It has never been where an administration said, I want the best and the brightest. It's been a patronage job, and it's been a patronage bill. The job's there. We've got to stop that. This is too important a job with too many issues that are affected. I got to tell you something. Some of these problems are going to be very difficult to solve. We need the federal government to help us out. Some of them are not that difficult to solve. Right now in buildings all across the city, people who want to improve their buildings to make them more energy efficient are going and getting contracts that say, look, we'll put in new windows, we'll put in new lights, we'll put in all the new fixtures. It doesn't cost you a dime, but since you're going to be saving money, it's called a performance contract, since you're going to be saving money, the money you're saving is going to go to me, the bank, the financing officer, to do that. Do you know we can do that in NYCHA tomorrow with lights and cameras and everything else? have a performance contract where we bring in these more powerful lights that are energy efficient. I found a company in New Jersey that was even willing to come to New York, set up a shop, create jobs. They said they'll throw in the cameras on top because they're going to get so much work. And there are companies out there that will finance the work because there's going to be savings on the energy. This is not rocket science. This is creativity as energy. By the way, I called the Housing Authority and tried my best to make that happen. And that was one of the many things that made me think, you know what? You know what? If you can't get them to do the job, try to do your job yourself. And that's one of the reasons I decided to run for mayor.
Okay, we have a question here. This is our first one of the night. This is an environmental question. What is your position on the New York City solid waste plan regarding Gansevoort and 91st Street waste transfer station? If 91st Street does not happen, then the city could reopen the 135th Street transfer station in Harlem, where we have high rates of asthma.
Well, I don't believe in opening that plant on the east side. You know, one of the smart things we did, and one of the few times that kind of the community won, was we created something called Asphalt Green. We took this big place where they were basically had sanitation plants and converted it into a park. By the way, there's no reason why you can't do that all around the city, not just on the east side of Manhattan. That's a conversation for another time. Look, I happen to believe that the idea of having economic justice and distribution of burdens all around makes sense. But they're building that plant on the east side of Manhattan instead of just putting taking the commercial waste and sending it off into New Jersey. It's not like it's going to go off into Brooklyn or into Staten or even into this thing. The fact is, this is a talking point. They want to look like they're doing something to even out the burden on communities like this one. So they say, look at us, we built something on the Upper East Side with your tax dollars, and it's a lot of money. So I don't support doing that, but I got to tell you what I do support. I support the idea that when people are going to build, when they're going to build in a community like this one, not only should they be considering the school impact, not only should they be considering what's going to happen with the sewage, they should be considering what's going to happen with the impact on our parks and recreation and places for kids to play. And on that point, just the same way we try to distribute tax resources all around, when the mayor goes out and raises a bunch of money from folks to help fix up a neighborhood park, I want to make sure that those parks get distributed around the 5 boroughs, not just in the backyard of a donor. You know, it really is the case that very nice neighborhoods like mine get better and better every day because miraculously people are donating to make their neighborhood park better. And what we're doing is we really are creating a gulf between these resources, and I want to make sure that your children have every benefit that my child has, including the ability to put peanut butter in the hair of my cat. I don't want that re-opened up.
All right, that's what I'm on.
Okay, we have a final question. How would you reduce class size in public schools?
You know, I think class size is an important issue, but let's remember something here. You know, if you take a class and you say it's 30 kids and we're going to make it 2 classes of 15 kids, I mean, you got to hire another teacher. And that means you got to find space. And I just want to make sure that, look, I think class size is important. There are some studies that show it's really important, some studies that show it's a little less important. The bottom line here is I want to make sure that the teacher has the resources in the classroom to be able to get the job done. You know, when my mother, she taught in public schools for 31 years, I was in the public schools during the fiscal crisis. We had some pretty big classes. And I know there is a tipping point. You can't make them too large. But I have to tell you something. If I have a choice between making the class size maybe 5 smaller or giving that teacher an assistant, a paraprofessional they can work with, giving them computer resources, making sure that school is safe and clean, and making sure that the bad kid in the back of the room is excluded from the classroom so that they can do their job teaching, that's my highest priority. The problem is with class size, and I'm just, you know, one thing you're going to learn about me during this campaign, and you're going to learn about me if I'm fortunate enough to be mayor, I'm going to tell it to you straight. If we reduce class size, you've got to increase dramatically the number of teachers, and we have a lot of overcrowding problem that we have in schools, because a lot of it is because we don't have space. One of the solutions is to make sure we're not shoehorning charter schools in everywhere. But another solution is making sure that we say to that teacher, we may give you a few more kids, but we're going to also give you some more resources so that those kids can learn. Thank you very much, and God bless you.